Razorback Nation? Welcome into episode 41 of Hogs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hogs. As always, episode 41 is brought to you by Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater or even just your favorite team with their meticulously crafted, comfortable, and stylish collections. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports. Homefield, where tradition meets modern comfort in every stitch. You can use promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order. So go check them out today. They got all the Razorback gear that you could need. Glad to see you checking here, Transplant Texan. And it's going to be a fun episode tonight, you guys. I don't know about you. It was a late one on Tuesday, but what a massive win for the Arkansas Razorbacks after that disappointing and agonizing showing they had on Saturday at South Carolina. They bounced back with a much needed win against Vanderbilt on the road. Another quad one victory to add to that quad one win-loss record as they get the job done 90-77. General thoughts on the game before we dive into stats and talk about some the players and whatnot.
Yeah, it's just an excellent bounce back game. I mean, if you remove that South Carolina game from the equation, they look like they're still on the same upward trajectory that they were before it. So Brazile keeps doing great. Nelly Davis is still out there looking like primetime Nelly Davis. DJ Wagner, it feels like he gets really hot in the second half. In the first half, he's more of a distributor, but he's doing his role. It just, and I mean, even like the guys that aren't getting that many points, Adu and Billy Richmond Adu had like 8 boards. He only like 6 points, but I mean, he's getting you 8 boards, and Arkansas won that battle by 10. He's doing his job. And Billy Richmond, although he gave up a lot of steals, he's still doing stuff that helps the team as well. So all in all, just a great bounce back game. It's not over. They really need this one coming up too. So as long as they keep their nose to the grindstone, I feel like they might actually be able to do this thing and get to the tournament.
Yeah, I actually was able to stay up and watch this one. I was very pleasantly surprised by the outcome. So great win. It was never really in doubt. They really took control of the game. So I was very shocked, especially after what happened against South Carolina. So still got work to do, though.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think the idea coming into this week is you hope to split these games, and I think it's a very real possibility that, you know, you could take both these games. I expect Bud on Saturday will be a packed environment. It's the last home game of the season. And you know, hopefully everybody wants to get out to it, come see these guys one last time in Bud. And I think the big thing is, and it's like, you know, the reason we talked about it for the title of the show. I think down the stretch here, you're missing Boogie Flane, you're missing, you know, Duthero. I think you're looking at Brazile being the key for success down the stretch here. When he plays good, look at what happens. Played well in that Texas game. Played well last night and had an outstanding game. If you just look at him, you know, from a statistic standpoint, 16 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, gets you 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals in 36 minutes of play, and is a plus 13 in the plus minus.
Yeah, absolutely. He's absolutely the key to this team doing good because he plays a role. He's not the same player. Okay, let me get that straight. But he plays kind of the same role that Thero did, right? Not saying he's going to go off like Thero did all season long, but his aggressiveness and his rebounding, that's exactly what Arkansas needs. They need to keep whoever they're playing off the offensive boards, and they need to go and grab, you know, some offensive boards themselves and, you know, have those second chances, especially whenever the shots aren't falling. And if he can do what he did yesterday, No, 2 days ago. I'm used to Wednesdays. If he can do what he did on Tuesday for the rest of this season, Arkansas has a shot, barring any like injuries or something like that, to actually make a couple games interesting in the tournament. If not, make a couple interesting games in the SEC tournament as well.
Yeah, I was going to kind of go down that same route that you mentioned. He's not for sure a 1-for-1 for Theo. Where that's not what we're saying. You can't just plug and play. Inspect the same performance. But like you said, he plays that Theo type of role where he can come in and kind of he brings that length, that size, that athleticism when he plays going 100%, if you will. And you notice a difference. It elevates the entire team because now you're not having to, make up for the lack of Theo when, Brazile gives you Theo-like numbers. Like, not that he's going to go off like Theo does, but hey, I'll take a double-double with 16 points, 14 rebounds any night from Trevor Brazile. And I think that is going to be key, especially like you said, to make a few games in the tournament interesting. To finish out the season here at Bud against a Mississippi State team that's decent. They're not great. They lost to Texas in overtime the other night, right before Arkansas's games. That's what pushed Arkansas's game to the SEC Plus for a little bit before, getting back on television. But so they're a good team, had some good wins this year, but they're very beatable. And I think if Arkansas can come and play the same mentality that they did against Vandy, then you have a good shot.
I mean, yeah. Especially, if we're being honest, if Arkansas played like this all season long, they're a top 3 team in the SEC. And I don't think they're number 3. They have the talent, just the base talent for each individual player to be one of the best teams in the country. We knew that coming into the game, into the season. They just didn't fit well. They had a little growing pains. They actually were better, addition by subtraction. I'm not saying Boogie's any, bad, but obviously that sparked something in them that, got them going. And I'm just saying, like, if they can stay healthy and they can stay out of foul trouble, in which all these things are very hard to do, and if they can stay, physically fit within the game, they're not too gassed, Arkansas could do some damage. They're probably, if they get in the tournament, they're going to be a 10, 11, 12 seed team, right? They are going to be probably the hardest 10, 11, 12 seed team in the NCAA tournament if they make it in. It's not a team any 1, 2, or 3 seed is going to want to see. I guarantee you.
Yeah. I've said before that this team goes as Nelly goes. And we can't forget what he's doing either. And Brazile played great. And I hate to say that a player is not showing effort because he has had an injury history. But it's like you watch him play like that and you're like, where has this been at? Like we're a game away from playing that SEC tournament, and where has this dude been at? So it kind of frustrates you on that end. I mean, you're happy that he's playing like that because he's wearing a Razorback, and that's what you want to see. But you got to kind of question, like, are you going to bring the same energy next game? Because if you're not, what did you just play like that for? So I hope that he plays the same way again. But Nelly's the key to this team. And if he continues playing the way he is, aggressively getting in the paint, trying to score, create offense, this team can be very dangerous. And I hate to say it, but I don't think we're going to see Theo again this year.
Yeah, I'm on that same boat. I just, there's been no definite report out there that, you heard him say on the broadcast the other night, a hyperextended knee, what that means, from what we think it means to what it actually means from a perspective of him and, what this coaching staff knows is probably two very different things. So, yeah, I'm kind of on that same mindset of there's probably not a good chance that you see Theo again this season. It does make an interesting thought, though, with, and not to get too off topic, but, with that injury, does that make him kind of reconsider having a possibility to come back? Or does it really make him think about, oh, yeah, I do need to go ahead and go because, what if this happens again type of thing. So it makes things a little interesting from that perspective. But, yeah, there's probably a good chance that you won't see Theo again this season or most likely in a Razorback uniform again.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be thinking. I mean, he's got the perfect example on the team right now. Trevor Brazile, he got hurt his first year here. He was, rocketing up the draft, the mock drafts. He got hurt. Next year, everyone's like, oh, well, is he going to go to the draft? He's not. Decided not to. Came back to Arkansas. Everyone thought he was going to be great, and he wasn't. And he just wasn't that guy. And then he ended up having knee trouble again. And then, his draft stock just tanked. And if I were Theo, I don't think I would have. I mean, as much as I love the Hogs, I'd be like, well, this bag at the university is good, but the one in the NBA is going to be better. And I need to try and get this money now before I don't have a career left. If it is, something bad in your knee, and if you end up hurting your knee again and losing your career, at least you have that back fall back on, if that makes sense. So it's more a financial decision than like a heart decision, because there's no one on that team that has more dog in them than Adu Theo, right? I don't think that has anything to do with it. This is a head play. It's not a heart play. So I don't, unless they can clear him for this year, I don't know. I don't think he'll be back.
Yeah. The only thing I'm thinking is if he's needed, and he himself and Cal and the coach staff have an idea of where, maybe it's something where it's something that maybe they put a brace on and he tries to feel it out in pregame or something like that. But I don't even hardly see that. It's like I see Transplant Texan in the chat here, and I agree. He's not coming back. It's like you were saying, Austin, and Transplant Texan says it here too. His draft stock's still solid. Why risk another season of college play when the roster could be stacked next season? Even though he would start. I mean, that's just that player he is. But also, why would you risk the potential of making that NBA money and being, a top tier pick?
Yeah, I don't see him coming back. Number one, because of what Austin just talked about, draft stock. Go get your money now. If you're going to be a late first round pick, early second round pick, go get your money now. Even if you're going to go play in the G League for a year or two, go get it. And number two, the roster will be stacked next year. As a matter of fact, with Cal having a full off season at Arkansas, it's going to probably be the best roster in the history that we've had on campus for next year. So, so next year, if we start 0-5 in conference play, we're going to be way more upset than we are now, because you're looking at a potential 3 or 4 seed if we wouldn't start 0-5 in the conference.
Yeah. Jumping over the chat real quick, it's like Transplant Text here. We talked about that. Didn't see that win coming on Tuesday. Pleasant surprise with how everyone played. Cal was right. That South Carolina game was a dud, and that wasn't his team out there. I mean, it's true. A completely different team that came to play against Vandy. I think part of it was they knew it was a must win, that you had to have it. And if I like seeing this on TV too and hearing it during the broadcast. Transplant Text said, how about those Hog fans representing in the stands at Vandy and calling the Hogs? That had to be a boost to the team on the road. I could even hear the Hog calls on TV as I was watching it, which was really cool thing to see. And, Nashville's not terribly far away. So it's like, if you wanted to, and, heck, if it wasn't a midweek game, I wouldn't even mind potentially thinking about driving to it either. But, it just shows it's a game that is very travelable for fans. And Transplant Texan said, with a 7-man roster, everyone has to contribute in a positive way. Janelle and TB specifically need to show up and play at an elevated level, but not to the exclusion of the rest of the team. And that's the part that I think they're figuring out is that median of where every guy kind of fills the role they need to without kind of stepping over each other and kind of throwing off the rhythm of the game, essentially. And I think that's what you see. I mean, we didn't even talk about it. Like Hobbs, you said, you can't forget about Nelly Davis. You know, we talked about Trevor and Brazile because it was just such a surprise. And, you know, we're not used to that from him. We know that we can get these type of games from Nelly, and, you know, it's much needed. He came out and led all scores with 21 points, 7-18 from the field, 2 of 5 from deep, hits 5 of 7 from the free throw line, gives you 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block in 39 minutes, plus 14 in that plus-minus margin. So he comes out and gives you a classic Nelly Davis game that you needed. I mean, and hopefully he can continue this play. And, you know, you're going to need these games Saturday and throughout the SEC tournament, and if you get in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so to go back on that hog call for just a second, I think that might be the most genuine hog call that I've heard all season long, and it happened to be 500 and something miles away from Fayetteville. That's sad, right? We got to say that. I don't care how many people's in that stadium. You should at least have one good hog call, like that's prompted by good play, at least once in a year, and it hasn't happened in Bud Walton. So just to get that out, I'm glad it happened, and I even tweeted about it when it happened. I was like, oh, look at that. But yeah, Nelly, he I want to say he's the key. I would say that he's the key, except I think that whenever I think of keys, I think of X factors. I think Davis needs to be the bread and butter, right? I think he needs to be the guy that scores those points. He gets 15 to 20 points every game. That's how it's going to happen. But the key, the one that actually pushes them to victory, is the one that you don't know if they're going to play good or not. The one that you don't know if they're going to hurt your team or help your team. So that's why I chose. That's why I think Brazile is that guy. But Nelly, like you said, he's got to be the substance of this team. He's got to be that bread and butter. He's got to be where you get all those calories, right? I'm a fat guy, so I'm talking in food analogies. But he's the guy that's got to go in there and get the points. And it's not always sexy. He's not always going to hit those in transition threes, you know. But like Hobbs was saying, get to the paint. Try to get some easy points too. Go in there and draw fouls. I mean, Vanderbilt has like 9 or 10 guys on the rotation, and they had two of them in foul trouble, and then another one that fouled out of the game. I mean, that is great offensive driving. Like, that is great play in the paint. And Arkansas had some foul trouble too, but no one fouled out. So they're being responsible with their fouls. They're kind of spreading it out a little bit. And actually had like 5 less than Vandy did. So they're doing what they need to do. And like you said, Davis is the one that has to be the foundation of this team.
And know what the big thing is when you drive to the paint as a guard, when you're forcing the ball inside, not only can you hit the outside shot, the mid-range shot, but when you're trying to get in the paint, get fouls, and go to the free throw line, you know what it opens up? It opens up that corner three, which is the highest percentage three-point shot in the game, NBA, college, whatever. And who was hitting corner threes last game? Trevor and Brazile. So when you have that, you have guys like Brazile and Big Z that can hit corner threes, and Carter Knox too. Because if y'all remember our tournament, our NCAA tournament runs, who was the guy that hit them corner threes that you were like, oh my God, I was not expecting him to score like that? Trey Wade. So, and we're going to need to hit quite a few of those in the NCAA tournament if we're going to make a run. So,
and that's something that Theo doesn't bring to the table.
Right.
He's not a good 3-point shooter. Trevor Brazile is a legit stretch big.
But a
right?
great thing
Like-
about a guard driving to the paint like that is they can dish it out.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Because I mean, how many guys or how many teams have two? Well, Brazile's not 7-footer, but he's dang close to it. Two
Right.
7-footers that are that accurate from outside. Right. I mean, it doesn't matter. You have Big Z and you have Brazile out there on the corners. I mean, Nelly drives. He can put it up. He can go for a foul. He can kick to one side. He can kick to the other side. It doesn't matter. Arkansas is dangerous. And the thing is, both Big Z and not as much, but Big Z and Brazile can drive from that position too. So
also,
there's a lot of diversity that Brazile brings to the team that Theo didn't necessarily do.
And another great thing about Brazile, if he continues to play the way that he played last night, this team's very dangerous because he was hunting the basketball. And I love to see that from him. So, for example, if he's sitting out there in the corner on the 3 line and say Wagner or Davis are driving, they can either kick it out. And if he sees one of them going up for it, he can crash in. And he's one of the best putbackers in the game. So, as you saw him do a couple of times against Vanderbilt, and you've seen him multiple times throughout his career. So, it's just a huge weapon to have. So, hopefully, he continues to play like this. If he can play like this, we can definitely make a run.
Yeah, he's very much the guy that – yeah, and he's very much that guy that with a putback, he's going to go up and over you.
Over you, yes.
And that's the thing with Vanderbilt. They lacked size. They didn't have any true bigs, which, I mean, bigs is tough for us to say because, like you said, Brazile and Big Z aren't true bigs, but they're
stretch guys.
They're stretch guys, and as far as height, they were still able to bring that length and size to just kind of – it frustrated Vanderbilt all night long, and that was the thing that I think throws teams off to Austin's point he had earlier. How many teams do you have that have 2 big men, 7-footer Big Z, close to that, Trevin, that are deadly from deep? Like, you can't, try to clog the lane because then, they just leak outside. Oh, dish to left corner for 3 from Brazile. Oh, dish to the right corner for, 3 from Big Z. Or, if they go up for it, Brazile's going down and crashing the boards for a highlight, play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and I think that all, as we tie it back around, what helps, Brazile be a key or an X factor for this team is because it's hard for teams to plan for a guy like that. It just is. I mean, it's like Transplain Texas said here, TB can elevate, that's for sure. And maybe that's given him some confidence back that we haven't seen this year, is that, it's from the standpoint of he hurt his knee and now, we're seeing some confidence play out of him. And I think that's what's going to hopefully fuel him in this team to the postseason.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys – I don't know if it was just this last game or he just hadn't been doing it, but I don't know why, but he floats. He doesn't just elevate, he floats. He's got helium in his shoes or something. I don't know how he does it, because if you watch that putback, he is in the air, I think, before it hits the rim. And then whenever it hits the rim, you see, I think it was McLaughlin, whoever there was down low, try to go up for the rebound, and Brazile's already there. He's already in the air, and he's been there for like 3 seconds. So he I don't know how he does it. He is just incredibly athletic, and this is the first time, like, he did really good against Texas in getting rebounds, but this is the first time that I've seen him jump that high that many times to grab boards. So yeah, I think you nailed it on the head earlier, Hobbs, that it's an effort issue. If he goes out there and does that every single time, there's no, like, he doesn't even have to score 16 points every single time. Go out there and get boards. That's more or less what I'm worried about. We've been killed on the offensive board all the time. So just go out there and, get clean the glass. That's it. That's what I really want him to do.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at it too, it's like Hobbs used the word, and I liked how he phrased it. earlier is on Tuesday night, he was literally hunting the ball, whether it be offensive rebounds. Look at the defensive intensity he brought. Numerous steals he had. That one tip pass where he had a breakaway wide open dunk. Like, he was just like all phases of the game he seemed to be clicking on all cylinders. Offense, defense, boards, watching for those tip passes to, knock away and then, have that highlight play that he did. So, yeah, I mean, it's like we talked about, Transplant Texan outlines it here. When everyone contributes, it forces defense to be honest and opens up options for scoring. And that's what we've talked about kind of all season that we need to see from these guys is if you can hit the outside shot, it opens up the inside. If you can go down and then capitalize on scoring on the inside, it keeps those outside shots open because then they don't know, oh, this team only shoots deep, and they struggle inside, so let's just force the ball outside. Or, this team shoots well from the outside, so, and I think that's the exciting thing about this team. And I can't wait to see what happens on Saturday and going forward. I think Arkansas is setting themselves up to be in a decent spot. Like we said, Joe Lenardi released his bracketology earlier today and had Arkansas back officially in the round of 64 instead of in a last four in play-in game. And so, like we said, that probably means Arkansas is going to be that 11-12 seed, but they're still in.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't matter. You're 11-12 seed. Those 12 seeds are pretty dangerous. I mean, there's a history of 12 seeds getting the upset, and the thing is because it's four teams like this in major conferences that are just barely getting in that may or may not actually be kind of good. Those 16, 15, 14, that's more for like mid majors. And the thing is, all you need is a chance. And once you get into the tournament, anything can happen. I mean, look at FAU. Whenever Nelly Davis was at FAU, went all the way to the Final Four. I mean, this is why it's not even my favorite sport, but it's the greatest postseason in all of sports. That's what it is. And the reason why is because
not the greatest sport. So,
it is. Don't even get me started, dude.
Oh.
No, it's pretty good. Everybody loves March Madness, but you remember Florida Gulf Coast too? You remember that team?
Oh, I loved watching that team.
Man,
they were so athletic and like I can't remember the nickname they had for them.
What was it? It was like Dunk City or something like that.
But like they had a run going, and yeah.
So it's March Madness is great, man. I mean, we're here. We're SEC tournament next week, and then you'll have the NCAA tournament the week after that. So
I was about saying then Selection Sunday in between.
Next Sunday, yeah. Which if we come on at 7:30, the bracket should be we come on at 5 on Sunday. So the bracket, I think that's when the show is.
I was about to say we may have to flex a little bit, or we might do some type of live.
And next Sunday is opening SEC play in baseball too. So it's going to be a full weekend there.
It is. It's going to be exciting. As we kind of wrap up on the basketball talk here, I'm just saying, says I think Trevin finally got mad about everybody calling him soft, put the fear of re-injuring his knee aside and literally rose to the occasion. I agree. I think that's a big part of it too. These guys aren't blind to social media. You can tell them as a coach all you want. Don't listen to social media. Don't get on, look at all this stuff. They're not going to listen because they want to see what the talk is on them. And I'm sure that didn't sit well with Brazile with getting called soft and all that, everything going around on social media. So, maybe that fueled him a little bit, and hopefully he can keep that going. Glad to see you jumping in here, Woo Pig. Transplant Texan has a question. He says, do the Hogs risk an NCAA tournament run by trying to have a run potentially in the SEC tournament and risk injury or body breakdown? Or, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it depends if you need a win or not to get in the tournament. If you can win on Saturday, beat Mississippi State at home, I would be okay with being one and done in the SEC tournament. I mean, that's a good point, because if you have to play those games, all those games back-to-back days, and then try to recover, and if you do get in the tournament, this team's going to be exhausted, and you have the chance of having another outing similar to South Carolina. I don't know if you'll have one that bad, but that's always a real possibility. It's kind of like the same idea with baseball here, and you probably I think we've talked about this before, Hobbs. What's the point in the NCAA tournament or SEC tournament in Hoover when
means nothing?
Exactly. Like, unless you just need those games to get in, it's a waste of time. I agree. I'm just saying losing's never good, but if you're in the tournament in this, with Arkansas's case of having 7 guys, it might be the best route to go. Not saying just purposely throw the game, but if you lose, it's not the worst thing in the world.
So here's the thing. If Arkansas now listen to this. If Arkansas beats Mississippi State, and then Arkansas Vanderbilt loses to Georgia, then Arkansas is going to be the 9 seed. I think 9, 10. Yeah, they'll be the 9 seed, right? And do you know who they would play first game? South Carolina. Get that back. And then most likely, do you know who they'd play after that? Kentucky. So are you saying, like, if that were to happen, like the best of the best scenarios, and Arkansas goes in there not needing a single win, you don't think they're going to try like hell to beat South Carolina and then try like hell to beat Kentucky? And now that you're already 2 games in, you don't think they're just going to try like hell to go and get a SEC championship? I mean, like, you're halfway there and might as well go the rest of the way. And to Transplant Texas' point, I am a little bit worried about that, because that pride thing, it might hurt them in the long run. It might make it harder for them to, actually get a good game going in the NCAA tournament. So I'm not saying I want to lose to either South Carolina or Kentucky, but I wouldn't be extremely heartbroken if it happened either. But if they go in there and get a win, I'm going to feel good too.
Fair
Listen,
enough.
I can't stand meaningless tournaments. If you win and you beat Mississippi State and you're solidified yourself in the dance, if you're dancing, who cares? Now, is the team gonna not try to win? Of course not. They're gonna try to win. They're gonna try to play hard. But if we lose another guy, we're down to 6 guys. Like, let's chill out for a minute.
Hey,
you're
talking with your head, man. They're going to go in there knowing what South Carolina did to them, and they're going to want to beat some ass. That's what it is. So, like, with your head, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But once you get in that game, you're like, nah, y'all embarrass us. I'm gonna want to win.
Fair enough. It's like that mentality of, man, they almost dropped a 30 piece on us. Like, time to get back.
So it would be, coming from like a competitor standpoint, it'd be hard for me. Even though I know that would be better if I just lost and got into the NCAA tournament, man, it would be hard to, not take that game personally. Either that one or Kentucky.
Yeah. It's a tough scenario. I'll be interested to see how everything plays out for sure, especially the seeding. I also saw a scenario in the NCAA tournament, if we get in, where the latest projections I saw with us getting in was matching up with Memphis, who used to coach at Memphis, Coach Cal. So another blue and white school of the feline mascot variety. So it would be interesting to see that matchup in the NCAA tournament. But I'm just saying here says, winning the tournament guarantees you a spot in the tournament. As far as winning the SEC tournament, how does that mean is playing well in the tournament improves your seeding, and that means a lot. That's fair enough.
I'm saying it's meaningless because if we win Saturday, the tournament doesn't matter. So, I'm big proportion of get ready for what really matters. Because, I mean, if we win the SEC tournament, who gives a crap? So I've seen it in baseball where we dominated the SEC tournament, turned around and lost in the Super Regional, and then everybody, was pissed off. So, let's get to the tournament healthy. Let's win a couple of games in the tournament, get to the second weekend. And, I've also seen Arkansas knock off 2 number 1 seeds before. So I'm not worried about a seeding. I can care less about where we're seeded. Seeding in the NCAA tournament does not matter unless you're a number 1 seed, which we not possible. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. I'm on the boat, especially this year I agree with both sides of the argument here. It's just tough for me because it makes me nervous to risk injury. You go all out, and play 2 or 3 games in a row in a few days, and guys get exhausted. Well, when you get exhausted, you're more susceptible to potentially getting hurt. And to the point as if you get in a tournament and make a SEC or in the SEC tournament, you make a run, you lose a guy, then you're 6 guys deep for NCAA tournament, so your chances there aren't that great. So it's a tough one to look at, especially this year. If this is an Arkansas roster that has 12, 13 guys that can contribute if a guy goes down, why not try to make a push and go for a run? I get it, but that's the thing that just worries me, because I know Arkansas has a tendency of, at times, no matter what sport it is, being injury prone.
So here's the best case scenario. Arkansas beats Mississippi State, and then Vanderbilt wins. That means Arkansas is going to be the 11th seed. They'll play LSU, beat LSU, and then you play Ole Miss, and you don't even care. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, hope for Vandy to win, take a win against LSU to just add a little bit to your resume. Huh? Vanderbilt's playing Georgia.
Okay.
So it's going to be a good game, and in Georgia, the thing with Georgia is that they're 7-10, just like us. So they're really trying to.
And that's the thing. So time out for a second. That's the thing about basketball. Are you cheering for a team that we beat to beat a team that we beat as well? Does it really matter? Like, because we beat both of them.
In the SEC tournament seeding, yeah. Because because Vanderbilt is 8-9 and we're 7-10. Mm-hmm. So if Vanderbilt wins, they'll be 9-9, and we'll be 8-10 if we win. So they'll still have a game up on us in the conference schedule, even though our head-to-head we win. But if Georgia wins, they'll have the same exact record with us, but we have the head-to-head on Georgia.
You know what's going to help this conversation a lot?
No.
On Sunday when we know what happened Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Yeah. Good point, Hobbs.
But yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying win one in the SEC tournament. I'm not saying just go out there and lay an egg and not even care about it, especially if you're playing South Carolina. It's never good to lose a team like that. Don't get me wrong on that. That's not what I'm saying. But if you lose to Kentucky or Texas, it's not the end of the world. Shake it off, go play in the NCAA tournament, but don't lose to South Carolina or LSU. Please to God, don't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
and saying at least just win one, right? At least get one. Don't get another quad 2 loss. That's what I don't want. I don't want another quad 2 loss. I don't care if we
don't hurt your resume. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. As we kind of get ready to wrap up here, Arkansas will take on Mississippi State on Saturday. Big time matchup to end the season. Kind of could seal things for Arkansas as they are ranked 25th, 20-10 on the season. And so I'm excited to see what happens. But, man, some of the chaos that's occurred this week in the SEC, though, we got to talk about that for a minute. You look at yesterday, Ole Miss knocking off Tennessee. Oklahoma, of all people, knocking off Missouri. I mean, we know Missouri historically this season has not played well away from Missouri.
Yeah.
Florida beats Alabama, which that one's not as shocking as those other two. Texas A&M knocking off Auburn on Tuesday. Like, man, some wild things happening right here at the end of the season.
If Texas A&M, Missouri, Ole Miss lose, Kentucky wins, they'll have a 1, 2, 3, 4 place tie for 5th in the SEC.
All right, you doing way too many scenarios for me. Let's just.
I got it pulled up in front of me. I'm just looking. Dude, I love scenarios. That's my favorite.
That's a lot. That's a lot of different things to happen.
Well, Transplant Texan just says go Hogs and we'll pig on Saturday. So,
yes, sir.
That's right.
He's getting to the point there. So, but yeah, that's some crazy games that happen. Ole Miss winning by 2. I don't know what to say for Missouri. I mean, it gives me a nice chuckle to see Missouri lose to a bad Oklahoma team. But, yeah. And then, a couple of other news outside of this season. Coach Cal's in the house to see Darius Acuff play as they are in the, I think it's the EYBL. And so seeing one of his prize recruits get some action. It was announced today, next season, Thanksgiving, Arkansas will be playing Duke in Chicago at the United Center. So another big-time matchup on Thanksgiving. We saw them play Illinois. Not as big of a matchup, but, man, the storyline between Duke and Arkansas, the history between them, beating them in the NCAA tournament to get, and all the history that goes into it. And Arkansas beating them at home last year. One of the few highlights of last season. And Transplant Texas got a good point here. Nate Clement, the guy that Arkansas has been making a late push for, finally is committed to an on-campus visit, and it will be here visiting Arkansas Saturday at Bud to see Arkansas take on Mississippi State. So Arkansas fans, get out there and show them how rowdy and how intense and insane Bud Walton can be. I believe, in my opinion, I think this is a scenario where you got him on campus. Cal's going to be trying to wheeling and dealing and not let this kid leave campus without kind of being like, all right, coach, I'm coming. There's kind of a deal, nothing signed, but in place for him as far as NIL terms. And I think that's big because if you add a Mint to the class that has Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, and Isaiah Sealy, and you go out and get some guys in transfer portal, to Hobbs' point, that roster next year is looking pretty salty.
Yeah, that would be an amazing get because Arkansas has the guards. They have just taking away the stars for a second. They have the guards and they have the bigger guard / smaller forwards like Carter and Billy Richmond. They don't have that power forward coming up. They don't have an elite guy like that from the high school ranks. And he could be he's like 6'9", so he's only an inch shorter than like Trem Brazile. He's got like the same length. He's got the same kind of playing style. I'm not sure if he's as athletic as Brazile is, but you could have somebody with that skill set too coming up. So it would perfectly, round out, put a little bow on this 2025 transfer class. And it would also put Arkansas at number 1. So according to 247 Sports calculator, it'd put Arkansas above Duke.
He had 27 rebounds in his last game. I know it's high school, but we could use some of them rebounds.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. I think he also added just in a nice little 44 points.
Yeah, that's all.
Just 44 points. But yeah. But yeah, Transplant Texan says so many reasons for fans to show up and make Bud an electric and imposing environment like we know it can be. Let's secure that win, NCAA tournament bid, and impress. All in one weekend. I like it. Let's wrap it all up in a nice bow and get things done and take care of a lot of issues on Saturday, which would be nice to see. So, a lot of implications on the weekend. Hopefully, Mint has a great visit with Cal, and Cal kind of locks him down. That'd be fantastic. Big atmosphere on Saturday. could have some big implications if Arkansas can get the win there. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. So that game's going to be at 11 a.m. on Saturday, an early game for once on Saturday. The last early game didn't treat us well, so hopefully this one's a little bit different. I guess this team's just used to playing 8, 9 o'clock at night, so they're having to get woke up a little bit earlier in the morning. So it's gonna be a fun weekend. Not only in basketball, a lot going on in Razorback Nation this weekend, and we'll jump over to baseball and recap this midweek series we had. But before we do, in case you missed it earlier this week, we had the announcement. We're excited that we are partnering with Parker's Sports Grill in Fayetteville as a new home location for Hogs on the Hill Live. Whenever we do our live shows, we'll be going live from Parker's, and our first show is going to be on Sunday. So after the baseball game, 5 o'clock schedule time, depending on hopefully if the baseball game runs late, it'll start as soon as the baseball game's over. But we're excited for this. It's a cool space. Come join us. We're doing our Razor recap show live in person at Parker's. We're going to be set up there. Come check it out. Hobbs will be with us virtually, just like we had him at Creekside. But it's an exciting opportunity, to get to, do the show, talk Arkansas sports, and be in location with other Arkansas fans. And depending on the setup, we're going to play around with some stuff. We might be open to some live questions as well. So we'll have to see how things get set up. But we're excited. That's going to be this Sunday at 5 o'clock at Parker's. They are in Fayetteville, like you're going towards Catfish Hole and a little shopping center on the right there. So go check them out. Go, they do a lot of trivia live events. It's free pool on Thursdays. All the trivia events they do, they also have different special events they do. They did like a Mardi Gras party earlier this week, and they have all kinds of cool stuff that they put on there at Parker. So go check them out. Come check us out at our live show on Sunday. We'll be glad to have everybody that wants to come and hang out and talk Arkansas sports with us. So go check them out. Go check, and we'll hopefully see you on Sunday. But Arkansas gets big wins in baseball this week, midweek, with some quite literally offensive explosion as they took down ULM in both games, both run roll games. Arkansas wins game 1 14-1, which was a weird series of events for this game. Arkansas gets through, 7 innings, if you will, or 6 and
a half.
6.5 kind of. And, it's 10-0. We give up a run. We go to the bottom of the 7th to bat. We get 2 guys on base, and lo and behold, the weather in Arkansas gives you a nice lightning delay. Game's delayed for a little bit, and then they say, okay, we're going to finish this game tomorrow before the second game. And then you turn around second game, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but this first game didn't take that long on Wednesday, as they kind of took care of business real quick there. But we'll jump in here. Starting pitching for this first game, you had Colin Fisher get his first start of the season in midweeks. Hobbs and I, and we talked about this last week. We said we kind of expected him to probably get an opportunity to pitch in a midweek game. And then he goes 3 innings, gives up 1 hit, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts on 41 pitches. Dylan Carter comes in for relief, gives you 2 innings of work, 1 hit, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts in 34 pitches. You have Aiden Jimenez come in for an inning, allows 2 hits, 1 strikeout for him in 14 pitches. And then Cole Gibbler comes in for that final inning, 2 hits allowed, 1 run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts for him on 22 pitches. Great outing for all these guys. It was great to see Colin Fisher. This is the first time we've got to see him in a lengthier outing than what we've seen so far this season. I mean, he's a guy that you saw last year was your go-to midweek starter for at least 1 game, working his way back. He threw 3 here. I wouldn't be surprised if he works up to 4 or 5, throughout the rest of the season. Your take on these guys on the mound that first game, Hobbs?
Yeah, so Fisher is one of our best pitchers. I really hope we see him a lot in weekend play in the SEC because he's going to be extremely hard to hit for any lefties, even righties that face him. So I'm hoping that he gets less work in the midweek. I know they needed to use him this week because he hasn't really had a lot of work since his injury last year. But I mean, this is a guy that his freshman year he was dominating in the midweek, and then he was pitching a little bit on the weekends. Then he got injured. And he's pretty much appeared in every weekend, almost every weekend we've played so far. So he's just good, man. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts next year. I'm not going to guarantee he's going to start next year because of what we can do in the portal. Because I mean, we brought in Vital Cheese and Root in the portal this past off season, so there's no telling what we could add in the off season. But I mean, he's just really good, and you can't really underestimate a lefty that big of a frame coming out of the bullpen, throwing the disgusting pitches he does. So I don't see anybody in the midweek if they're going to continue to start him in the midweek, which I think Bobby's going to be the guy if we're only playing one game in the midweek because he hasn't really shown that he can pitch on the weekends yet. Unfortunately, he's kind of been a midweek guy his whole career so far. But you know, Fisher, if we're playing two, he'll probably be the other guy that starts. But you know, 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. I know we're only playing Louisiana Monroe, which honestly was our weakest opponent so far this year that we've played. Washington State's not a bad team. Charlotte looked good. And those 3 teams we played, Texas, obviously, they always are decent teams. But, you know, it was good to see him, you know, pitch as well as he did. I think he's going to be a big factor in the SEC play. I think Dave Van Horn's going to have to use him. But the other guys like Gibbler, who pitched that last inning, you know, I really, you know, I hate to see him giving up a run, but then again, I didn't because of what Lloyd did to end the game. So, because if he would have pitched a clean inning there, Lloyd would have never had that opportunity. So, but he struck out the side. That's the second straight game that he's come in where he's given up a run or so, but he struck out the side. So if he can clean up walking that guy, because if you put walking the person, he's put the guy on base and they end up scoring. So if he can clean up the command just a little bit, I'm telling you, Cole Gibbler is a guy. I don't know if they'll have the confidence in him to really pitch a whole lot in the SEC this year. I hope so. But his future's bright. I mean, this is a guy that could have got drafted high and went to the majors. And then who was the other guy? Dylan Carter. I mean,
Dylan Carter and Aiden Jimenez.
Yeah, Dylan Carter. I mean, the dude's 9-0 in his career at Arkansas. I mean, when he comes out and pitches, good things happen.
He just comes get you outs.
That's what I'm saying. So, veteran pitcher that throws really well, throws strikes. You know, Dylan Carter's a guy that obviously has been pitching a lot on the weekends. He's going to continue to do so. Dave Van Horn has a lot of confidence in him, and hopefully he stays healthy all year. Obviously a solid guy. And then obviously Aiden Jimenez, I talked very highly about him, thinking that he might be a starter by the end of the year if Gackle doesn't perform well, which I think speaking of Gackle just a little bit, Dave Van Horn has mentioned that he is very frustrated with how he pitched last weekend and that he expects big things from him tomorrow. So I would not be surprised if you see Gackle have a great game. We're talking about a guy that is very talented, SEC preseason pitcher of the year for a reason. So don't give up on him quite yet, but yeah, Jimenez looked great. So
yeah. So we got a question here for you, Hobbs, from Transplant Texan. He says, you talk about a pitcher being a midweek guy, not having proven weekend starter. What distinguishes a weekend pitcher from a midweek pitcher?
So a couple of things. You have guys like Dave Van Horn likes to, if you have a freshman pitcher come on campus that's really good, he normally likes to pitch them out of the bullpen their freshman year. Prime examples are Hagen Smith, Gabe Gackle. And then he likes to work them into their sophomore and junior year into another guy, Jackson Wiggins, which we'll talk about in a minute about Pro Hogs, but which I think Carson Wiggins is the next guy as well that does that. But, you know, when you have a talented pitcher like that, you want to work their pitch count up. You don't want to just throw them right away into that. And Hagen Smith's a prime example of how he came out of the bullpen his first year. And then he just became this phenomenal starting pitcher. Ended up being a top 5 draft pick. But, you know, that's what really works it up. As far as veteran guys doing that, you look at Gage Wood, who's come out of the bullpen his first 2 years of kind of trying to work him as a starter. But a lot of it has to do with how many guys do you have? You know, do you have 3 guys that can pitch on the weekend, which we have? We have too many options at this point. Unfortunately, Gage is hurt right now, or we'd have 4 like we had to begin the year. But it just depends on, you know, have you done it before? Like the 2 guys we got out of the portal, they've done it. That's the thing about this portal, you know. Some of these guys that have pitched on these lower end programs that they don't know if they're going to be able to play in the postseason. They come to places like here that they know they're going to get to the postseason and can perform in front of scouts and stuff. Because like I've mentioned before, and we'll talk about this in a minute with our pro players, the ultimate goal for college players is to get to the next level. So, you know, it's harder than it used to be to make a guy come out of the pen and be a starter because of the portal. You can get guys that's been starters at other places. But the main thing is, you know, you're going to try to start them like Gackle has struggled his last outing. I don't know if he's going to be quick about moving him back to the bullpen if he struggles again, which I don't think he will. I think he'll be fine. But yes, it's interesting. It just depends on a lot of factors.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's jump into some of this offense from this, you know, this first game. You had a lot of it this weekend happen, and I don't think we can go any further without talking about one Kahio Aloy that has been just having a phenomenal start to the season. Announcers are calling him essentially, as of right now, you know, the Aaron Judge, the Barry Bonds of, you know, type of season that he's had so far. And the start to the year, he comes out in this game 3 of 5 for 6 RBIs and 2 runs. And here's the thing, that's what we were talking about, and that's the Hobbs point of, you know, if you don't have Gibbler give up that run, then you don't get to see what happens on, you know, to finish this game. Well, Arkansas starts the game, you know, resumes game 1 on Wednesday before the second game, has runners on second and third. You add another runner on, and then the story of Kahio Aloy continues to grow as he steps up to the plate and just sends a massive grand slam. And Arkansas walks off 14-1. What he's done so far this season, honestly, it's getting to the point, and it's almost already there of being historic. To have a guy have this good of a start, almost coming out, I hate to say coming out of nowhere, but not being, this wasn't expected out of him. You get a guy transferring in, he's the younger brother of a guy that you brought in last year, struggled, but then, you know, was a top recruit that you went after in the portal. You bring him in, you know, he DH'd last year where he was at in a, you know, it was BYU. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a baseball conference. Like, you know, you have the SEC, ACC, and some of those smaller mid-majors. But, you know, he comes in, you expect, okay, he's a little brother. He didn't necessarily play a ton other than DHing. You have Kendall Diggs, you have, you know, Logan Maxwell, guys that, you know, that's usually where they play. and he just continues to step up the plate, see the ball, and hit dingers. I mean,
Yeah. What do you call it? I was sitting at work, right? 2:00, and I was like, oh, the game's starting. Let me go and put it on. And by the time the ESPN app turned on, it was over. And I mean, like you said though, and I missed it. I hated that I missed it, but you know, that's what Twitter's for. They give those clips every time they hit a home run or do, you know, hit a good play here and there. But yeah, like what he's done is not really, it's not really short of remarkable, because I know you were hesitant to say it, but this came out of nowhere. I don't know, he wasn't like an amazing hitter at BYU. What, it was like 350 or 300, something like that.
270.
270. So not even that. So now he's hitting 562. Like you sent us that graphic earlier today, Hobbs. Number one in the country in average. I mean, and the thing is, he in what do you call it? Transplant Texas said it too. His slugging is like 1,200. The dude, he's not only just hitting, he's hitting doubles, he's hitting home runs. He's just knocking the cover off the ball. And I've never seen anything like this at Arkansas. I mean, dare I say it, is this even better than Keston Herstead right now?
the only problem with that, and I'll let you go here in a minute, Hobbs, that is we talked about a little bit before, is like you didn't get to see a full season of Heston Kjerstad. If you extrapolated out his stats for what he did in the first 2 seasons, you're probably seeing very comparable stats here. But yeah, to your point, it's like, and we have to put an asterisk by that. But yeah, we haven't really seen anything like this before. I mean, you might have to go back to Benintendi, you know.
Yeah,
right,
so a couple things here. So, Kjerstad. So Kjerstad, Dave Van Horn mentioned this too. Like that year that COVID hit, where Kjerstad ended up getting picked second overall by the Orioles in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said they couldn't get him out in the scrimmages before the season started. And as a matter of fact, he said that he had to take Kjerstad out of the game because his pitchers needed to work. So that's how good he was hitting the ball. So could we have seen it before? More than likely, yeah, because you talking about Kjerstad, I've never seen a pure hitter hit the ball like him. Probably just because he's a lefty and just everything he did at Arkansas led us to the national championship series that we should have won. But anyway, you know, but Aloy, I mean, the way that excuse me, the way that he's hitting the ball, I am very surprised that they're still pitching to him. Which he's coming up with a lot of people on base right now, which is probably why they keep pitching to him, because you don't want to keep walking a guy on base with less than 2 outs, and then another guy can drive the runners in. But he's coming up with a lot of people on base, and I mean, 26 RBIs in 10 games is unheard of. Shockingly, Justin LeBron at Alabama has more RBIs than he does. He's not hitting as high average as Lloyd is, but you know, it's just I can't believe it. I'm just thinking, like, am I really watching what I'm watching when I see this happen? Because, like you said, he was not expected to do this. Kjerstad was expected to do it because he had just led a team to a College World Series and was phenomenal. And then you just knew he was going to get better. Loy only hit 270 at BYU last year. And then he comes in here and he's just seeing beach balls. So, excuse me. I don't know. I'm hoping he doesn't cool off. He's played himself into a lineup to where He's got to be in the lineup, got to hit 4th or 5th. I mean, you got to have him in there. But if we can continue to keep doing what we're doing in front of him, I don't see why he's not going to keep it up because, like I said, he comes up all the time with people on base everywhere because of what Davalon, his brother Eloy, Maxwell, and Iredale are doing. They're just getting on base. And then you got him coming up and hit a grand slam or a 3-run double in any second. So hopefully he keeps it up. Don't get discouraged if he's only hitting 280 in this. See, that's still pretty damn good.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, you look at it hitting right after him in this order, you can't forget to talk about either Brent Iredale. He goes 2 for 2 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs scored in this game. In the game, he was hitting 436 on the season. He's sitting at 385. So, I mean, he's not as hot as what Eloy's been doing right now, but, I mean, he's still doing what everybody kind of expected him to come in and do.
Yeah.
So, like –
and I talked about this all preseason. Iredale was the guy that I thought was going to do this. But, I mean, he's still hitting almost 400. And he takes so many walks, it's not even funny. He has great at-bats. And even Dave Van Horn mentioned, like, hey, I know you're going to see him watch strike 3 every now and then, but you got to admire a guy that's not swinging at crap. He's not having bad at-bats. He's the guy up there. If he goes 0-2 in a count, I don't ever worry about it because he's not going to swing at crap. And I do like the move that he's made to where, because at the beginning of the season, Iredale was hitting before Eloy. Now he's hitting after sometimes. So I do like having a guy behind Eloy that's more consistent because the other guys were Pepe and Diggs, which have the potential, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah. If you look at some of the other numbers in that first game, you have Vahiva, Cahillo's older brother, go 3 of 5, scores 2 runs. Logan Maxwell goes 2 for 4, scores a run. We talked about Cahillo. We talked about Brent. Cam Kozel, 2 of 4 with 2 RBIs and a hit. He's kind of cementing himself into this lineup as well with how well he's playing. Ryder Helfrich doing Ryder Helfrich things as, to be expected. Nolan Souza, 2 for 4 in this game. You like to see that a guy finally kind of gets something going. He scores 2 runs in this game. Scores 2 runs. Strikes out once, but it's nice to see him get bat-to-ball contact and it not being out.
Right.
Very much needed for him, I think, just from a confidence aspect too, because he struggled so much in this season that to finally see him be able to put balls in play and not just for all intents and purposes be an automatic out like he has been for the most part this year.
Right. And I don't want to jump ahead, but what he did in the second game too is just building on top of that. It's like a shooter's just got to see it go in. He's finally seeing it, right? He's finally seeing success at the plate, and we already know what he can do. It's just he needs to get back to that level. Watching him finally get some success is good. The only other one I'd really like to see get more success is probably Kendall Diggs too. But that's just, I mean, whenever, 7 guys are hitting really well, you can't complain about like one that's not doing really well. So
Diggs is this close. I mean,
yeah.
He is. So Dave Van Horn mentioned this. They're trying to tell him to be more aggressive because he does like to watch too many pitches go by. And a lot of times he gets really good pitches his first 2 pitches. So they're trying to get him to be a little bit more aggressive. But the ball he hit in the second game just was a mammoth home run. So if we can see that a little bit more, that type of swing, maybe he can get going more. But the outfield is so loaded that we don't have time to play with anybody. Davalon's playing really well. Justin Thomas is an on-base machine that can steal a bag in a heartbeat. And Maxwell is phenomenal. You can't have his bat out of the lineup, especially in SEC play. So, and then the DH spot's locked up at the moment. So,
I was about to say that normally
yeah,
would be the Kendall Diggs role.
So, but yeah, Cozell, like I mentioned all preseason long, the the Souza situation was not guaranteed because of how good Cozell is. Excuse me, it's nice to see Souza get a home run, but I got to see a little bit more because, we're only 4 games away from getting into SEC play. So now is the time to show us a little bit more. Keep building on that. You got a whole weekend series against Portland. Got a midweek game against Central Arkansas. I expect to see him in every single game, just to get his bat going more and more. So got to see a little bit more. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for Pepe too. The good thing about Diggs and Souza hitting home runs is I believe there's only 2 guys that are getting normal playing time right now that haven't hit a home run, which is Pepe and Becker, which Becker doesn't play a whole lot, but Pepe's a guy that's normally in there. I think he's the only one that hasn't hit a home run yet. So I think when he gets his first one, you'll see him get going a little bit more.
Yeah. So here's a question from Transplant Texan, and you can explain this for the people out here. We talked about this order. You have Davlon, Aloy, Maxwell, Cajillo, Iredale, and even throw Diggs in there right there, all squished together. Transplant Texan said, what's the philosophy of having all your power hitters so close together in the batting order?
Well, philosophy's pretty much, pretty much this whole lineup has power. They have the ability to hit a home run, which you've seen already this year. Pepe is actually one of the guys on the team that has one of the most career home runs on the team, and he hadn't hit one yet, which he's got power. We just ain't seen it yet. The philosophy is, and I'll break it down for you. So you lead off with Davlon. He gets on base. You go to Aloy next, which is a power hitter. He can hit for power, but he also can hit in the gaps. Say he hits a double or a single. If he hits a double, you got second and third with nobody out, and you bring your 3 best hitters up to the plate, which would be Maxwell, who is a career 330 hitter, which has gained 15-pound of muscles thanks to Nate Thompson this offseason, and is hitting with more power than he ever has before, which we've seen so far. So you bring a guy up like that is not going to strike out much. So he's either going to hit the ball to the right side of the field to drive in a run at that point. So say he hits a ground ball to second base, you drive in a run, it's 1-0, 1 out, runner on third. You bring up Iredale or Aloy, say it's Iredale, a guy that walks a lot. He walks. You got a runner on first and third with 1 out. You bring up Aloy, 3-run homer or a double in the gap that scores 1 or 2. That's why you clinch those hitters together so that you can have an inning like that. And then you have your other guys spread out that are good hitters. They're just not as talented as those. That's why you want to have your best hitters hitting all together, so that you can produce an inning like that. If you have them spread out, they all may hit base hits or doubles, but they're all spread out together, and you end up not having the. Have you seen the innings that we've had this year where we score 4 to 6 runs? This is what this team can do.
Or even 10.
Yeah, even 10 where we come back down from 8. So that's why you have the lineup the way it is.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's good there. Let's jump over the second game real quick. Arkansas wins this in run rule fashion, 15-3. You saw Ben Bobby guy we talked about earlier get to start in this one. He goes 4 innings, 40 allows 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts on 58 pitches, faces 18 batters. Tate McGuire comes in relief, 2 innings for him, 2 strikeouts, no hits, no runs allowed for him in 25 pitches, faces 6 batters. Then Will McIntyre comes in, gets 2 outs for the final inning on 13 pitches. clean game for those two relievers. Tate McGuire, a guy that you've seen in the weekend series a lot. Dave wants to go to as a reliever. Decent weekend for him and all these guys. Bobby, it's like we talked about. He's the guy that hasn't really showed you can do it on the weekend. You see him. I don't want to say struggle, but give up a decent amount of 5 hits and 3 runs against ULM. What are you supposed to do if that's SEC play? So I mean that's kind of why you see him in that midweek slotted role. But these other two guys, what you're getting out of Will McIntyre. Tate McGuire is a guy that you didn't see much of last year, but Dave has a lot of really likes him and is kind of trying to put him into a key reliever role.
Yeah, I talked about Bobby before. He's been a midweek guy his whole career. He's had these moments where you're like, man, that's really good. But that's really what his role is going to be this year. If you see him on the weekends, it'll probably be later in the season when the midweek games are over, or when we need a pitcher to really pitch. So that's the only unfortunate thing about Bobby. Maybe I think he's still got another year of eligibility after this, so maybe he'll even improve more as the season goes along. And then McGuire, I mentioned on the last episode that I wasn't a big fan of seeing him, one of the first guys out of the bullpen in close games. And I think that's why you probably saw him in the midweek game this week, is because he struggled a little bit. He's got over a 5 ERA, so good to see him getting there, get some work in the midweek. He's gonna good to see that because, like I said, I think there's more guys that you're probably going to see ahead of him now, because of how good this pitching staff is, and then McIntyre with another solid outing. Like I mentioned before, where we're going to go a whole weekend without seeing him. We finally saw him on Sunday, so. Good to see him throw, decent. Lord have mercy, decent for a second straight time. Hopefully he can carry that over into a good outing this weekend and go into SEC play next week.
Yeah, 100%. McIntyre is the guy that he's been around. He gives it his all. You love to see him come out, anytime he gets the opportunity to pitch, because he is a guy to me that you can truly point to him and say, that man's a Razorback to his core. He's always wanted to be a Razorback. He came back for another year just because that's who he is. He wants to be a Hog. And, if you saw the little video they put out before the season, talking about him and having kind of like the flashback with the ball boy and him back, or bat boy, and back and forth. I mean, that's the guy to me that you look at if you're David Owen and say, that's a guy that, he may not be the most talented guy on the roster, but man, does he come out here, work hard, get things done, and, leaves it all out there. So, we love to see Will McIntyre. And then as you jump over to the offensive side of this game, clearly we didn't pause after that first game. We kept the offensive production rolling here. Charles Davlon in this one, 2 for 3 with 4 RBIs, 4 runs scored for him. He hits himself a grand slam in this game. Vahiva 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Brent Iredale, you saw him move up in the order. One of the few games you're going to see him go 0 for 2. Kihio Aloy continues to do those things that we just talked about, 2 for 4 in this game with 4 RBIs, 1 run scored. Nolan Souza, 1 for 3, scores 3 runs, hits a big home run in this game. Zane Becker, 1 for 3 with a run scored here. Justin Thomas scores 2 runs, 0 of 1 from the plate. So, the consistency is getting better about these guys coming out and producing, especially that part of the lineup we talked about of, Davlon, Aloy, Iredale, Aloy, and, Diggs as well. He goes 1 of 3 for, that massive home run that we hinted about earlier. And, hopefully that gets him started going. And, Souza continued, that play. So, all these guys are continuing to take all those good moments and build off from them.
Right. And I mean, you kind of just said, oh, it was a big home run. I mean, it was a walk-off home run for Souza. That's what I was alluding to earlier. I mean, whenever you see, a swing like that and you finally get a little bit of that confidence. I mean, walking off a game, even though it's 15-3, it still gives you a little bit of oomph, right? It gives you a little bit of confidence. So seeing that, and then like Davalon and Aloy both getting 4 RBIs each. I mean, Davalon gets on base, but the dude was hitting on Wednesday. Like he was just doing extremely well and having timely hits. And that's what Arkansas has struggled with over the past few seasons are those timely hits, the runners in scoring position. And I don't know how accurate this is, but if you look at Stat Broadcast, where I get all the stats, the official ones for Arkansas, they are he's hitting 308 with runner in scoring position. And then Arkansas has 3 guys hitting over 500 with runners in scoring position. So they're doing what we wanted them to do. And it's good seeing that. And as long as pitching, which we obviously know can keep up with it, as long as they stay up with it and they continue into the SEC play, man, I'm getting a little bit angsty, just waiting to see the season keep going.
Yeah, it's a strong excuse me, it's a strong SEC schedule. So just hold on to your belt. So are we gonna hit like this every game in the SEC? Absolutely not. Because believe it or not, we're not the only team that has good pitchers in the SEC. So it's gonna be a tough road. I mean, we end the year with Texas, LSU, and Tennessee. All 3 teams that I highly dislike, but they're great teams. So we got a long road ahead. So it's not going to be easy. After we play Portland and Central Arkansas, even Ole Miss has done well this year. I think they've only lost 1 game so far. They're going to be ranked in the top 15 probably by the time we play them next weekend. So it doesn't get easy. We'll have our good days. We'll have our bad days, but the hitting is definitely improved. You can just tell that. I don't care who we're playing. And like I said, I don't think we played a bad schedule. I think losing Monroe was probably the worst team we've played so far. But yeah, the hitting, talked about it all offseason. It's improved because of the last 2 years. Mentioned before, and we'll talk about these guys here in a minute. We lost our whole outfield 2 years ago, and then last year we couldn't recover from it when it mattered most. Like if you think about all the times last year where we just couldn't get a hit when we needed it, that's not going to be the case this year, and that has a lot to do with the question I just answered, why the lineup's built the way it is, because you have multiple guys that if one guy doesn't get it done, the guy behind him can.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And the one thing that we haven't even talked about for this game, 13 walks. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys have more than 1 walk in this game. So not only are they hitting, but they're being patient. And it varies, but seeing guys that can do both, like Iredale for sure, but it makes me feel confident going into the season. I don't think they'll play like this every game, like you were alluding to, but it makes me feel more confident than last season, especially last season, but even the past 2 or 3 seasons, that no matter what the jam is, they at least have a, competent offense to get them out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mentioned before, the offense is going to be the factor of where we go.
Right.
Because the pitching, we're going to face some great hitting teams. Regardless of how well we've done, we're still 9th in the SEC in batting average right now. I know Tennessee ain't played nothing but School of the Blind and the School of the Deaf so far, and they play in the T-ball ballpark. But, same for LSU. They hadn't really played anybody yet. Texas A&M is almost 500, but we'll get our chances at all them guys.
Yeah, I mean that's that's the joy of SEC play is we get to see all these guys, and at the end of the day, see who's the best, and I think Arkansas has an opportunity to come out on top. So, great stuff. Arkansas will be back in action this weekend playing Portland, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It's going to be a good week, another good weekend. And we're going to jump over and, continuing on baseball, talk about some pro Hogs as Arkansas leads the country with 10 alumni players playing in the MLB breakout game in this spring. And we'll talk about those guys. And it's guys that, the names all too familiar, guys that played big for Arkansas over the past few years. And we'll dive into it. We'll just list them off real quick. Is you've got Hagen Smith, of course, going top 5 last year, playing for the Sox. Michael Turner, catcher a few years ago, plays for the Sox, and also Peyton Paulette playing for the Sox as well. Peyton Stovall playing for the Cincinnati Reds. You've got Jared Wagner with the Yankees. You've got Caden Wallace with Washington, Christian Franklin with the Cubs, Jake Borfin with the Blue Jays, Wiggins with the Cubs, and Caleb Cowley with Seattle.
You know what's cool is that in the past, I would see those lists and not know a single person on the list. But now that I actually follow baseball and I'm writing and stuff, I know every single one of those guys. So I'm excited that I get to watch some pro baseball and actually know who's out there on the field.
Yeah, so talk about that outfield a couple of years ago. Jared Wagner, Yankee system. He's been phenomenal in their farm system, which is why he's getting a chance in the spring training. Just a great hitter. Don't know if he's going to produce a lot for the Yankees this year. They're loaded. But Jared Wagner, and then the other guy in the outfield that year was Jace Borfin, who's with Toronto. That's playing pretty well as well. One of their best prospects. And the other guy that's not even on the list, that's in like high AA and AAA, Tavian Josenberger with Baltimore. He's been doing pretty well too, which is another team that's loaded in the outfield, and Kersted's even having trouble getting playing time there. Which is, we all know about Kersted. But Hagen Smith, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the team out of spring training. I don't know if they're going to be that quick on forcing him in there because they're one of the worst teams in MLB. So maybe midway through the year, you'll probably see him, but I would not be surprised if he's pitching in real games this year at some point. Peyton Stovall is another guy that's kind of just skyrocketed. His first career hit in the minors last year after he got drafted was a triple in the gap. But yeah, I mean, Stovall, you could just tell when he was on campus and had that 4-hit game in the College World Series that he was going to be a pro ball player. And Cincinnati's not really deep at his position. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sees some action this year. I don't know if it'd be this year or next year, and then Michael Turner's a guy that he's been killing it in minor leagues the past couple of years. And the White Sox, they only won 40-something games last year, which was one of the worst years in Major League Baseball history. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's in there getting some work too this year. So because he's, like I said, he's been killing it in the minors. And then, Peyton Paulette is also on the White Sox, another guy that could probably see some MLB action this year. Caden Wallace, who got drafted by the Royals, was traded to the Nationals because he's been a top prospect for a while now, for the last couple of years since he's been drafted. was traded to the Nationals because they needed the help of the third base position. So I wouldn't be surprised if Caden Wallace is another guy that you could see in the MLB this year. You could just tell he's another guy you could tell when he's on campus. Hey,
He's
this dude's
just a big leaguer.
That's what I'm saying. This dude's gonna play professional baseball. And then Christian Franklin, man, he's another guy that's been producing very well. He was on the AAA Iowa Cubs last year in the leadoff role a lot of the season. So this is a guy that's gotten a lot of work in the minors the last few years. The Cubs, they're a little bit stacked in the outfield with the acquisition of Kyle Tucker. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see Franklin maybe in the bigs this year if you see some injuries or maybe in a platoon spot. Another guy that's in the Cubs organization, Jackson Wiggins. He's another guy that's pitched really well. Also, a guy that's didn't make this squad, but really pitched really well last year in the minors. Connor Nolan is in the same system playing with Iowa in the AAA that really pitched really well. I'm surprised he's not on this list. I don't know if he's got an injury right now or not, but he's a guy too that I wouldn't surprise if we see him at some point. And last but not least, Caleb Cowley is another guy with the Mariners that I'm not surprised to see because he struggled his first few months here on campus, but then he started to hit. And you could see just how well he did. But yeah, I mean, you talked about it. You lead the nation, and these are only just a handful of guys that we have in the minors. I mean, we can go so on about guys that we have in the minors, other older guys that are actually in the MLB that have got their spot and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So this is what I talk about on Twitter and on these shows about how our program is one of the best in the country, and you can't deny that because of this reason right here. This is the main goal of college baseball is getting
it's
to
like
the
the
next
proof's
level.
there on paper right there. So
Exactly.
And right now it's like I'm gonna go ahead and say I think we all need to start and sign a petition for the Orioles to trade Heston Kjerstad because his talent's being wasted up in Baltimore. Hate to see he gets called up so many times. It's like I've seen him get called up and they don't give him enough time to get going. And they send him back down. And so what does he do? Come have an amazing performance. And so give him an opportunity somewhere where they know he's a good hitter. They know what he can do. Just don't know if that's going to happen, but would love to see him go somewhere else where he get plenty of opportunity.
Absolutely.
As we kind of get ready to wrap up here, don't want to leave out Arkansas softball as they're getting ready to start SEC play this weekend with Ole Miss. So, Arkansas Diamond Sports going to Ole Miss back-to-back weekends. But Arkansas currently has, we've seen all the stats. We've talked about all the numbers that they've put up. Well, D1 Baseball now rates Bree Ellis as the number one first baseman in the country right now, rightfully so. All the numbers that we talked about, what she's doing. After not playing last year, Courtney Day for Arkansas has been one of the best at the plate for Arkansas along with Bree Ellis. She's ranked up there in some of the top utility rankings. But let me just throw some numbers at you. Through the first 20 games for Arkansas softball, plus 153 run differential, 168 runs batted in, 15 run rule victories out of 20 games, 33 home runs, a 371 team batting average, a 1.72 team ERA, 489 on base percentage, and 161 opponent batting average.
That's elite.
Yeah, that's pretty good numbers. Hopefully they can keep it going in the SEC. Excuse me.
I was about to say, and then you talk about week 4, last week's top performers. We just mentioned her, Courtney Day, 15 RBIs, 6 extra base hits, 615 batting average, and 1 scoreless inning. Because She also pitches as well. And then in the circle, Peyton Burnham, 1-0 record, 1 save with 8 strikeouts, and she has a .88 ERA on the season for Coach Deifel. Man, this team's just loaded. Like I said, Brie Ellis, the number 1 first baseman. Courtney Day ranked as number 1 utility player, and then Robin Heron, Arkansas, one of Arkansas's many good pitchers, is ranked as the number 4 pitcher in the country. So yeah, I mean, this team just continues to do things like we said. 15 run rule victories out of 20 games. They get ready to get conference play started this weekend, and I'm excited about that. But if you're in town and in Fayetteville next weekend, you might want to keep an eye on it. Arkansas baseball is going to be in Oxford playing Ole Miss. You have the Oklahoma Sooners coming to Bogle Park. Some primetime softball there for you to get out there and watch, since Arkansas baseball isn't in Fayetteville. It makes it just so much easier to go watch what I expect to be one amazing softball series happening here in Bogle. Another stat I want to throw out there for you that I saw that I thought was very interesting. The Razorback communications team put out a great story about it, is that if you look at Brie Ellis and Courtney Day combined on the season, and they've already nicknamed them the Bash Sisters.
Yeah,
they each have 33 RBIs, which combines for 66, which is more than 147 D1 college programs this season. Individually at 33 each, that's more than 42 D1 programs as well. I mean, it's like you earlier, Austin, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because it's a long SEC season, but man, should we be gearing up for a trip to Oklahoma City? That's a real possibility here.
Yeah, it's hard to say that, but the first real test, Oklahoma, right? I don't care if they've kind of fell back a little bit. Oklahoma's Oklahoma. If you can at least do well with them, I feel really confident about them getting through regionals and super regionals and making a trip to. When I say really confident, I don't really confident about anything in baseball and softball, right? So 50% is probably really, really confident for me. So I feel like 50-50. If they can do well against Oklahoma, I feel like it's a 50-50 shot whether or not they make it to Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Transplant Tagging says softball team continues to rack up runs and wins. That's true. This team, what they're doing is, they're on I feel like a historic pace as well. We're talking about Kahio Aloy. This softball team, the numbers they put up, to have 15 out of your 20 first games be run rule victories is insane. So, they're knowing how to put up runs and also limit runs with that low ERA they have as a team with a 1.67. That's just amazing to see what Courtney Deifel's built here, and I love to see that success. So, as we get ready to wrap up, I want to put this up here and remind you guys one more time. Parker's on Sunday at 5 o'clock, or if the baseball game runs late after the baseball game, we'll be live doing our Razor recap at Parker's in Fayetteville. And it's going to be a good time. Come check it out. Come get your drink. Check out their wings. They've got fantastic Cajun seasoning that you need to add to your fries. And I'll personally recommend the jalapeno popper burger. Fantastic. A nice burger it's like a cream cheese spread with some jalapenos in it on top. It can't be better than that.
I hadn't ate yet. You got to stop this. You're making me salivate.
And then, of course, Hobbs, when you're in town, we'll have to get you there at Parker's as well.
Absolutely.
But fantastic stuff there. We're excited. It's big for us. We haven't forgotten about Core. We're still Core. We'll have some shows there time to time. They're our OG, but this is big for us to partner with a place in Fayetteville, and a place that loves the Hogs as much as we do. So come check us out on Sunday. We'll be there at 5 o'clock till 7, at least for the show piece, and after that, who knows how long. But it'll be a good time. Hope to see as many people out there as possible. And as we wrap up here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube, podcasts, anywhere you can find your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Hit that like and subscribe. That helps us out tremendously. And as we wrap up, we're excited to have a great weekend. Everybody have a great Friday. And we'll see you hopefully in person on Sunday at Parker's. So with that, we're going to get out of here, and everybody have a great weekend and tune into all the Arkansas sports going on this weekend. And so that, we'll see you guys later.